Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. So in today's video I'm going to build in the world of Copperdale, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 high school years, and I'm going to be building a arcade, a roller skating rink that also has an apartment. So for this build, the apartment ends up having 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and it's pretty much taking up the whole second floor of this like community lot small business type venue. Now this week I thought it would be really fun to sit down and build an arcade in the game, because where I'm building the world of Copperdale, this is meant to be like the high school kind of like teen focused world. And for my save file, which by the way this build is for my save, but I just want to basically make it so this world is so interactive. There is so much for your Sims to do, there is so many different places for your Sims to visit, and I just thought what a lovely thing to have, like a little arcade that your Sims can come to with their friends on like a Friday or a Saturday evening or something. Now I do want to mention that part of this build was actually inspired by a comment from one of you guys. So around about a month ago I got a comment on one of my most recent videos, and someone said that they know that I've already got kind of like a bowling alley and an arcade already in the world of Oasis Springs, which that build which I did is a couple of years old now, but I still, even to this day, I play in that build all the time because it's just so much fun. But they said that they knew that I already had some sort of like venue like that, but they thought it would be a really fun idea for me to have a roller rink in the world of Copperdale. Now when I saw this comment, I just thought that this was such a genius idea, but initially I was a little bit stuck because I've basically already assigned different lots in my save file for like different venues that I eventually do want to get around to building. And I already knew that I wanted to have some sort of arcade in this like teen focused world. Initially, I think I was going to build like an arcade with maybe like a record store, or maybe like a little pizzeria next to it or something. But when I got this comment and someone said about having a roller rink in the world of Copperdale, I just thought that this was so clever. And so for this build I basically combined my original idea of having an arcade, but then combined this idea from a comment and made it into a multi-purpose and multi-functioning small business lot. And I'm just so happy and just so proud of this build. And so I really hope you guys like it, even just like half as much as what I do, because building community lots I get really stuck and I get really scared, but no, I just absolutely love it. And so I really hope you like it as well. But anyway, moving on from that and actually getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So over here I'm currently just figuring out this staircase configuration. This is how you get upstairs to the apartment. Like I said, it's got 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and I did make this my save file like I said. And so as always I have got a storyline for the Sims that are going to be living on the upstairs but then also owning the roller rink and the arcade, but I'll get over and tell you about that shortly. In case you're curious where I'm building, by the way, I'm building on what is originally meant to be the library lot in Copperdale. Now I don't know if it's just me, but I have honestly never visited this lot, because when you enter a brand new save file in Copperdale, off memory there is a boba tea and thrift shop, there is this library, and then I think there is a national park, and that's it. And to me, I'm someone that I really love playing with teenagers in the game. Like, I love having teens go to high school. I like having them to have all these different relationships and just go out of an evening. I love like teen focused gameplay, and to have the world of Copperdale not really have that many like interactive community lots that you can visit, I just thought it was a little bit silly having a library in this world. I mean, I do understand it because obviously high school you go to the library and stuff, but I mean I've already built a high school for my save file, and on the upstairs I made quite a big library section, so I think it seems covered. And so I decided to build it on originally the library lot. Also, something that I wanted to mention, I did also purposely build this lot backwards, not even just for the good lighting, although the lighting is so much better this way round, but basically where I'm building, there's kind of like a, what's it called? right in, you know, like a cul-de-sac kind of thing. Basically, right outside this lot, there's kind of like a little cul-de-sac area, and my plan for my save file is to actually use the tool mod and place down like some like trucks and, you know, like teenagers' cars and stuff right outside the arcade. And so I decided to purposely build it the wrong way round, just because to me it makes a lot more sense for, you know, your Sims, they go into the arcade with their friends on, say for example, a Saturday evening. They've asked one of their parents if they could drop them to the arcade, and so your Sims parents, in my head anyway, they would drive down into this little cul-de-sac and they would drop them outside. Hopefully you're following along with me, but I just thought for realism purposes it made more sense to, yeah, flip this lot 180, if you want to put it that way. But currently over here, I'm just coming in and pretty much just figuring out the floor plan and the general layout for both the arcade, but then also the roller rink. Also, I want to mention, if you see me pull out some objects and I just plonk them and I leave them, it's more so for like idea for sizing of things. Down here, this is a brilliant example of it, because this is kind of like where the roller rink is going to be. Now, the way that I did the roller rink situation is it's the build on the left hand side, and when you enter like the main street level, you kind of walk in, you've got some seating area, maybe you want to take off your shoes, you know, put on your roller rink, put on your roller skates, and then there is also kind of like a little check-in desk area. There is some vending machines. There is also a woohoo closet. I made a conscious effort to put multiple different woohoo locations in this build because, you know, it's just fun for gameplay. But then you go downstairs and that's where the roller rink is, that's where some toilets are. There also ends up being a bar down there. And then I also tried to include things which, me personally, I love in gameplay, and one of the things is the photo booths that we got from the high school years expansion pack, which is a small thing, but again, like I said, I am someone that I really enjoy playing with teenagers in the game, and a lot of the time I want them to go and, you know, take a romantic photo with like their boyfriend or something in a photo booth, and I don't like the fact that if I want to go to that photo booth, I have to go to kind of like the, what's it called? It's kind of like a fairground section in the world of Copperdale. It's so nice that it's there, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit restricting when an object that I personally like so much myself is restricted to kind of like one section of the world. I think off memory as well, when your Sims go to prom, there is also a photo booth attached to like the venue itself. But yeah, I included a photo booth down there just because I thought, again, for gameplay, it would just, yeah, it'll be really fun. But then over on the right hand side over here, you can see that I'm coming in and putting down like loads of different neon signs and posters and just random like wall decorations basically. But this is going to be the section that is completely dedicated to the arcade. Now on the inside, but then also kind of a little bit on the outside of the arcade, there is so much gameplay. On the outside, I will admit the majority of the gameplay is either painting graffiti murals, which you can see that I placed one down kind of like on the bottom right hand side over there. There is, I think, 3 murals that your Sims can paint on, which is always fun to get your Sims to, you know, spray some graffiti if they're being a little bit rebellious or something. There is also a few vending machines outside, but then on the inside, I tried to make it as full and as compact with as many activities that I could possible. Of course, I placed down the arcade machine, which the machine itself is from the Get Together expansion pack, but I placed down one of them in there. I also placed down some like retro looking computers for like a little video gaming area for your Sims. There also ends up being a ping pong table, some gaming mats. There also ends up being some dartboards, some actual game tables so your Sims can play like Don't Make the Llama, or they can play cards or something. There's also a foosball table. There is also like radio stations. There is also some seating as well. At one point, and you will see it because I decided to keep it in because I just thought it might be interesting to kind of see my thought process. But I did also debate, and it could have fit, but put in a basketball section inside of the arcade, because I don't know about you, but whenever I do go to the arcade, which I must admit it's not that often, but if ever I do go, the one machine that I am running to is, you know, them little like basketball things where you try and throw the basketball in the hoop and you've got to do it a certain amount of times within like a minute or something. I love doing that in the arcade. And when I was decorating the inside of the arcade, I was really trying to think about every single like game activity, every single type of thing that I like to get teenagers to interact with in the game. And one thing that I personally like to get a lot of teenagers to do is play basketball. And so at one point I thought, well, it'd be really fun actually if I could make kind of like my version of a basketball hoop section as part of like the arcade. But then I thought it does fit, but then I also wanted there to be some seating on the inside of the arcade, because although I wanted to jam pack this lot, I also wanted it to be really easy for gameplay, and so I do decide to remove the basketball court. But yeah, you will see that whole entire thought process shortly. But currently over here, as you can see, I am trying my hand at trying to make some sort of roller skate light sign situation. Now in the game we do have a good handful of different signs for community lots, and we have loads of different like neon signs and posters and stuff, but I searched through the menu and honestly I couldn't find any that I feel like from the get-go on the outside street view that you'd be able to identify that something's meant to be a roller rink on the inside. And so I thought, why don't I just try it and make my own, which is pretty much what you can see that I'm doing over here. Now I will admit, I did have to cut out maybe like 3 or 4 different attempts of this because I couldn't build this boot for a while. I really struggled with this, but in the end I'm really happy with the way it looks, and I feel like it actually does look like a roller skate. I did find a picture of just like a generic roller skate and I'll pop it onto my monitor, but I'll show you the picture that I was kind of using as my reference point when I was making this. The way that I just built it, I feel like you can kind of get the general gist anyway, but I just used this base game light and just sized it down a few different times in different areas, and yeah, basically tried to, I don't want to say trace because it would have been a lot easier if I could have traced it, but I basically just tried to mimic the shape of this roller skate and yeah, do it using a light. I did then also change the colours of the light, which I made it so the actual boot itself is going to be kind of like this really beautiful aqua blue kind of colour, and then I made it so the wheels are kind of like a really bright hot pink. I then also made it so the little stripes that I put kind of on the bottom left hand side of the boot, they're yellow, and yeah, in nighttime it looks so cool. You will see it in a second because I do actually come back and almost like rejig the boot a little bit, because although it does look like a boot here, and I am still proud of that, but I just wanted to rejig it a little bit, which you will see shortly. But yeah, when I like kind of like rejig some of the lights about, I enter nighttime mode, and in the evening it just looks so cool. And then in combination with the arcade being next door with all their neon signs, it looks like such a fun place to visit. And like I said, I'm so proud of this build and just all the little tiny details I tried to include into it. But either way, moving on from that and getting on actually talking a little bit about the Sims that I kind of imagine own this arcade. Now in my head, the person that owns this arcade is called Andy, and I think in my save file I'm going to call it Andy's Arcade and Roller Rink, which I know that's such a random thing to bring up, but you know sometimes when you see diners in like TV shows or something, and say for example Riverdale, if you're a fan of Riverdale, I haven't watched it in a few years, but when I used to watch it there used to be the diner which is called Pop's Diner. I like the idea for rules and purposes for having the arcade be called Andy's Arcade. And then in my head all the teenagers are like, do you want to go out tonight, should we meet at Andy's? And they just come to this roller rink in this arcade or something. But Andy himself, I imagine he is a single guy and he used to live here just, on his own, but fairly recently his teenage son has moved in with him. Now I will say the storyline that I've got is quite rough. I'm still figuring it out, and so if you've got any suggestions or anything that you think I should implement into the storyline, I would love to hear it. But yeah, basically I had this idea that Andy, he always grew up in Copperdale, and I imagine that his family used to live in the more kind of like woodsy area of the world, but he has always been a part of the family business, which is the venue that I'm currently building. I basically had this idea that his parents, had this arcade, and that's maybe why it's decorated to be a little bit retro, because, he hasn't decorated it in a while and he's kind of kept it to how it is. But he had a girlfriend when he was in high school, and they were together for a few years and they really loved each other. But then one day, and his parents passed away and kind of left the arcade for him to run. I then had the idea that maybe by this point he was probably in his early 20s or something, his girlfriend has just fallen pregnant, and maybe they did live on the upstairs in the apartment for a little while, but maybe his girlfriend just wanted to move away from Copperdale. She didn't want to live in the world that she grew up in. She wanted to move away from this small town, and so they basically broke up, and with that she took their son with them. Now, I was personally picturing Andy to be the kind of guy that he lives and breathes this little small business. Like, everyone knows Andy in the world of Copperdale. He's kind of like a core member of the community. But I imagine that when his girlfriend said that she wanted to move away, it was probably a little bit of a a hard decision for him because, you know, his family had left him this small business for him to run and he didn't want to abandon that. And so, yeah, his girlfriend at the time moved away with their newborn, or maybe their infant. Like I said, maybe they lived in the upstairs, and maybe what is now the teenager's room used to be a nursery, but maybe it was only a nursery for a few months or something. But pretty much the idea that I had from then was several years later, you know, his boy has now grown up, he's now a teenager of himself, but sadly his mum passed away, and so as it kind of happened, he had to move in with his only living guardian, which is his dad, Andy. Now, kind of like the main core part of the storyline, which almost like inspired this whole entire storyline, was the fact that when his teenage son first moved in with him, his teenage son was so cold towards him. I was thinking kind of like a moody teenager, doesn't really know his dad because, you know, he always grew up with his mum in a different world, which I'm not sure which world they would have previously lived in, but he lived with his mum, and to his knowledge, his dad was not a very nice person, you know. He was a baby and he left him when he was younger because he wanted to pursue his family business of the family arcade and roller rink. And I imagine the teenage boy probably thinks it's a little bit almost like pathetic in a way. Imagine him to be, yeah, quite moody, quite, honestly, a little bit like hard to talk to sometimes. You get the kind of idea that I'm trying to play across to you. But I imagine that, yeah, when he first moved in, didn't like his dad, didn't have a relationship with his dad. But I was thinking through gameplay, it could be something really nice to discover that they actually have quite a lot of common interests, and he actually finds out that his dad is actually a cool kind of guy. I think as well I might make it so just a little bit more depth to it. Maybe there was some stuff that went on in Andy and his past partner's relationship which the boy's mum never really told her son. I don't know what the son's going to be called, if I'm honest. I haven't got any name ideas yet, but again, actually, if you've got any suggestions of what Andy's son could be called, I would love to hear it, because I struggle sometimes trying to figure out names for all the different kind of Sims, and I want to give Sims names that kind of like match their personality in a way. So yeah, if you've got any suggestions, let me know. But yeah, maybe Andy's ex-girlfriend, the teenage boy's mum, didn't really tell him the whole entire story, and maybe there was some kind of like ill intent. Maybe she was wanting to paint Andy to be kind of like a bad person, but he's actually not. Like I said, I imagine that he's quite a cool guy. I imagine that he's the type of sim that would call everyone Bud, which I feel kind of cringy saying that because I feel like I only hear people call each other Bud in like American films or TV shows or something. But yeah, I imagine he's the kind of person that would just call everyone Bud, and I imagine that he always refers to his son as like Bud or Buddy or something. And yeah, I was thinking that when this teenage boy first moved to this world, he obviously didn't know anyone, and he just thought his dad was quite a loser because, you know, he runs this arcade and he probably thinks a little bit childish or whatever. But actually going to high school, Copperdale High, and speaking to all the teenagers, he actually finds out that no, his dad's actually a really cool person and everyone loves Andy. And yeah, for gameplay, I just thought that would be really fun. But either way, moving over and actually getting back to the build, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of the arcade. So in here, I really, like I said, I tried to make this as jam-packed as I could possible, with so many different games, so many different activities, just for your Sims to interact with, whether it be by themselves or whether it be with, you know, their friends that they're going to the arcade with. You would have seen when I was kind of blabbering on that I did try and place down a basketball court in kind of like the back section of the build, which, to be fair, where I originally placed down that basketball court, kind of like over by what is now where the curtains and the balloons are, it did fit there, and I was still able to have like the gaming mats, and then I was still able to have, you know, like the ping pong table and the foosball table and stuff. But then I kind of looked at it again and I thought, although all of this is going to be interactable and there is so much in here, I was also thinking from like a gameplay perspective, whenever I get my Sims to visit community lots, I notice that half the time Sims just love to sit down and chit chat with each other, and so I really wanted to include some sort of like seating area. And so yeah, I did decide to remove the basketball court, but if you wanted to, you could definitely add it in if you wanted to kind of sacrifice maybe having some seating on the inside. But yeah, in here we've got like a foosball table in the corner, we've got some seating, we've got a music station, we've also got 2 gaming mats, and then also 2 dartboards. Initially when I had the basketball court, I could only have 1 dartboard, but then when I kind of like sacrificed that idea, I was then able to add kind of like a little dartboard section. It's on the opposite side of the wall, so it might be a little bit confusing, but I purposely placed down some sort of like scoring board system on the wall, which I imagine that Sims, when they come into the arcade with their friends, they would kind of like keep a leaderboard, if you want to put it that way, of all the different scores. Something as well that I did on the ping pong table is I merged in this rug to make it look like the ping pong table almost like belonged to the world of Copperdale. Now, we got ping pong tables from the Discover University expansion pack, and we have 3 different variations of them. We've got like a plain black one, plain like grey, red, and I think also green. But then we have 2 others which have the university mascots on. And basically, I just had the idea, instead of having a university mascot, to have the Copperdale High School mascot, which whenever I use any like mascot things in teenagers' like bedrooms or any type of builds, I always use the same one. But I want to let you know that I'm doing it on a purpose. I'm doing it for a reason, and it's because I've already built the high school in Copperdale, and I've already done almost like the school colours, the school kind of branding. And so in my save, I'm trying to keep it consistent throughout all the different spaces. But yeah, I just got a rug and I moved it up using just like the Move Objects 9 key, and then ever so slightly levelled it down just so it was sitting nice and flush with the ping pong table, and it looks like the ping pong table belongs in the world of Copperdale. Really proud of that idea. It's still usable, by the way. I've fully playtested this whole entire build in terms of like the arcade, the roller rink, all of it. It's all fully playtested and it all fully works. Didn't run into any problems. I ran into one problem upstairs, but it was just a case of a bookcase not being usable because something was a little bit too close to it. But when I move over and I actually do it, I will tell you about it. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the roller rink. So pretty much as soon as you walk in through the front door, you're kind of met with almost like a nice little seating area. In my head, I was thinking Sims would be dropped off by their parents, or maybe your Sims can drive in a dream world. Your Sims can drive, or any Sims can drive, but your Sims will be dropped off here and they'll go into the little like initial entrance section, and I was thinking that they would put on their roller skates, and I was also thinking that they would get out their backpack, you know, try and search for their wallet or something. On one of the coffee tables, I placed down a wad of simoleons, and so I was thinking maybe it's the teenagers who, you know, he's found his money and he's yet to go up to the cashier and actually pay for his skating. Maybe it's like a session, or maybe he's having a lesson or something. Of course, your Sims don't actually use the cash registers, and the ones I've placed down into this kind of like initial reception area, they're purely for like gameplay perspective storytelling. Your Sims would just like tap on the little ticket kiosk which is on the left hand side of the build, but just for kind of like realism purposes, I thought it'd be nice to include some cash registers. Over here I'm currently coming in and basically trying to make it look like there's some sort of like shoe storage situation. Now the one on the left hand side, that is actually bowling shoes on the inside of it, but I was just thinking that in my head they would be roller skates. Now if you're curious and you didn't even know that we had roller skates in the game, your Sims can roller skate and then also ice skate if you have the Seasons expansion pack. And the thing is with that, they didn't like fully flesh it out, they just kind of added it onto Seasons. You know, it's cold out, it's icy out, it's cold enough to go ice skating, and so they gave us both the skating rink for ice, but then also the roller skating rink. But with that, we don't actually have any roller blades in the debug menu, and so I just thought the bowling shoes could kind of like pass off as roller skates or something. But also in the upstairs area, I placed down some vending machines, placed down some more signs, and in that little black door is actually a woohoo closet. Which, I mean, I say that as I change the colour swatch a bit, but yeah, there is a woohoo closet on the upstairs level. There does also end up being a second woohoo closet downstairs in kind of like the main roller rink section, which you can see I've now moved on into the downstairs section. But then other than that, I think I also placed down a garbage bin outside, so your Sims can also woohoo in that. So in total there is 3 commercial woohoo locations, but I mean if you wanted to, you could definitely play with a teenage boy and maybe he has a fling with another teenager, and so maybe he invites them upstairs and they could also woohoo in just, you know, like a regular bed, or maybe like a shower or something. There's plenty of opportunities. But now moving on, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and decorating the roller rinks bar. Now I must admit, roller skating isn't really a thing where I'm from. Like I couldn't tell you a place that has a roller rink inside. I could tell you an ice skating rink, which by the way, I do actually have plans to build an ice skating rink for my save file as well. don't want to talk too much about it because I never want to talk about things before I've actually done them, just in case I can never do them. But I have got the plan to build an ice skating rink. However, where I've never been in one, I have been in like bowling alleys and stuff, and quite commonly in these kind of community venues you'll have some sort of like bar situation. So where I built this to be a small business lot type, I can assign multiple different activities, and one of them that I thought would be really fun for gameplay would be to drink some bar drinks. And so yeah, over here I made kind of like a little bar situation. The actual bar item itself is from the Bowling Light Stuff pack, but it was just the most perfect bar for this kind of like downstairs roller rink retro kind of situation. And then I decided to pair it with these kitchen counters and cabinets that we got from the Dream Home Decorator game pack. And you can see the way that I've done the cabinets, I've kind of made them float in the air. Now you see either side of this like bar situation, I've kind of like blocked it off using just like little one tile rooms. In gameplay, I've already come in and made them to be platforms because I basically wanted the bar to be a little bit kind of like built in to the wall, make it look like one unit rather than it just being almost like a standalone bar. And so when I was filming, I just made it so they're little tiny cubed rooms. And I know you might be looking at that thinking, yeah, but in gameplay, that's all going to disappear if you play half walls up, half walls down. But if you actually put it so there's platforms inside of it, you can still see all the different decorations. I just never put platforms up high when I do my speed builds, just because platforms can make your camera go all over the place. And so yeah, I do end up blocking them off in case you're looking at that thinking, yeah, but I'm gonna not be able to see any of the decorations. You will, don't worry, I've already done it. And when you download the build off the gallery, there will already be platforms assigned to them little spaces, which it is a bit of a nitpicky thing to point out, I must admit. But the thing is, I build in the game, but then I also play in a lot of the builds that I post. And so to me personally, if I couldn't see them decorations that I spent quite a while doing, like all the lights and stuff, and the walls would just disappear, it would kind of take it out of me in terms of like gameplay and kind of like the immersion in a way. And so if ever I do anything like that, I always try to remember to mention it, because yeah, I was just thinking for gameplay, it would be really nice to see them decorations. But either way, over here, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and struggling with this booth situation. So I really wanted it to be somewhere where your Sims could sit down in a booth with their friends, have a chit chat, maybe they've just grabbed something from the bar, maybe they're having a drink or two, but I just couldn't figure out how to decorate this section. I end up cutting quite a bit of it out, but I did want to show you some of my thought process. Initially, I wanted to have a bit of like an arch section leading into the booth itself, but then once I actually sized up these little, they're kind of like spandrelly kind of things. The one that I was trying to use, I think, is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. But when I sized them up, I was looking at them thinking, yeah, it does look nice, but for gameplay it actually might be quite annoying. And so I did decide to scrap that. And then in the end, after many attempts of trying to decorate this one little particular area, I found this kind of like glassy wall decoration. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but you can see I've just kind of like moved objects it behind the photo booths, and I really liked it because I just thought that it really went with like the mid-century retro-y kind of feel, and it was just something to add a little bit of extra interest pretty much behind the booths itself. But the actual booths, if you're curious, they are from the Dine Out game pack, and the wall decoration that I moved objects, that is from Eco Lifestyle, I believe. Never use it, didn't even really know it was a thing in the game, but yeah, no, it is. But in front of the little booth section, I also placed down some balloons, because I was also thinking, in case you just don't want to have teenagers only visit this lot, you could also have it so kids could come here and maybe have birthday parties. And so I placed down some balloons, and then over in the corner, I also placed down this white table which has a cloth on it. That is a buffet table, and in gameplay, your Sims can serve all different types of food, and you can kind of like pick and choose what you want to serve. I did also place down kind of like a little signpost to maybe indicate that it's someone's birthday, and then I placed down some extra balloons scattered about in the downstairs section. I did also have some more dining areas for maybe the booths are for like the kids, and then I placed down some like regular dining tables and chairs, and maybe they're for like the adults or something. You have kind of like a kids table and maybe like an adults table at a birthday party in this roller rink. I just thought it was a really lovely idea. But now moving over, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and actually just decorating basically a nappy changing room. Now, where I was thinking you could have, like a little kid's birthday party here, or teenagers, doesn't have to just be for kids, but where I was thinking you could have all different members of the family visit this venue, I was then thinking about the possibility of, okay, well, what about if it's one kid's birthday, but that kid also has like a younger sister or something who's an infant, and because their parents are attending the birthday party, they need a nappy changing room. And so initially I was going to place down 2 photo booths, the one that we got from high school years, right next to each other, but I felt like one was just, appropriate enough. And so instead of placing down 2 photo booths, I just made a small little nappy changing room, just so the build is basically for all members of the family. I didn't include any toddler potties, but I might, before I pop it onto the gallery, run into the bathroom and just place one down. But over here, as you can see, I'm just now playing about with the actual roller rink itself. Now, you wouldn't have seen me pull out the roller rink when I was decorating this room, but when I was doing the floor plan, I placed down the roller rink just to kind of get a general size for the room and how big I needed to make each certain space. I placed the roller rink down then, and pretty much I just left it in the build. But the roller rink, like I've already said, is from the Seasons expansion pack, and even though the one that I've used takes up the majority of the downstairs level, surprisingly it's actually the smallest one that we've got from Seasons. We only have 2 sizes. We have that one, and then we have an absolutely massive colossal one, and there was just absolutely no way that I could use the bigger one, just because there wouldn't have been space for a toilet, there wouldn't have been space for a bar down there. But I just placed down the little roller rink, and then you don't see it in the speed build because I did it off camera when I was playtesting, but around the walls, initially I was just so stuck on what to put on the actual walls itself, and so in the build I left it so it was just plain wallpaper. But you'll see in the screenshots, I've now already come in and just added a few more like neon lights just to make it feel a little bit more, like a roller skating rink or something. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs portion, and I've started coming in and decorating the apartment. Now, the way that I decorated the apartment is quite different to how I decorated kind of like the small business commercial places, because for both the arcade and the roller rink, I tried to go down a bit more of like a retro kind of route. I wanted it to be colourful, I wanted it to be just really fun for gameplay. But in terms of the apartment, I was just thinking, Andy, he's a regular bloke, he doesn't have like neon lights in his actual apartment, it's just kind of like a realistic apartment on top of an arcade and a roller rink. You can see that I've already done like the initial entrance and almost like hallway into the apartment, but currently I'm coming in and decorating the kitchen. Now, for the kitchen, I went for these kitchen counters that we got from the 4 Rent expansion pack, but if I must admit, they weren't actually going to be my first choice for counters. Now that I've used them, I'm really happy that I went for them, because I actually really like the way the kitchen just looks. It looks like a realistic kitchen, but initially I wanted to use some base game counters. But the thing is, this whole entire apartment is built on a slight platform height, because on the downstairs level, the door to get into the roller rink is a medium height door, but where I raised it up onto a platform, just a little tiny bit of the door was clipping into the ceiling, and it was really annoying me. And so the way to kind of like get around it is I pretty much built the whole entire apartment on a slight platform height. But then with doing that, with placing down the kitchen counters, the back of the kitchen counters were kind of like clipping into the window. And I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but for like realism purposes, it did annoy me a little bit. And so I did decide to kind of like level down the kitchen section to the original like height of the flooring, if you want to put it that way. But then I found when I did that still that some of the backings of certain counters were clipping in, but the ones from 4 Rent didn't clip in with the windows, and so decided to use them ones. But in the kitchen as well, there is kind of like a little utility room off the side, which I just feel it just looks so realistic. It's very simple in there, but I don't know, recently I kind of like this more simple, a little bit more cut back on the clutter of decorating. Not for all my builds, don't get me wrong, but for like certain builds, I kind of like this more like less overly powered with clutter and more just kind of like really purposeful individual objects, if you get what I mean. But then I say that with all of the clutter, I try and like think of the reason why I've placed it down. But in the little water heater situation, I got the water heater itself, and then also a washing machine and a tumble dryer. But then in the actual kitchen, it's something that I wanted to mention, because I did not know this until literally the other day, but I placed down some cereal boxes on like the kitchen bar unit. Did you know that's interactable? Your Sims can click on the cereal boxes and you can just get like a little bowl of cereal. Didn't know that till the other day. Love that from the kitchen clutter kit. It's just one of them small things that to me, it adds so much realism into the game. And even though it's like a little simple interaction where your Sims can typically just get a bowl of cereal from the fridge, which actually now I've thought about it, that doesn't actually make any sense, because for years we've just been able to get cereal from a fridge. why didn't they implement this sooner? Either way, I love it. But then also from the kitchen clutter kit, I didn't place it down in here, but just in case you're not aware, we've got a cookie jar from that kit, and if you click on the cookie jar, you can also get a cookie. Love small little things like this. Honestly, it just adds so much realism into my gameplay, and I live for it. But either way, in this room as well, this is where the dining room is, and then also kind of like the lounge seating area. In here, I placed down a dartboard behind this like retro looking TV, which I must admit, I purely placed it down for decoration because I just thought it would look quite nice in the lounge room, because I imagine Andy, the guy, you know, that lives in this apartment, he loves a game. He literally owns an arcade, and so he's definitely going to have some like arcadey bits and bobs upstairs in his place. But yeah, I placed down the dartboard for decoration. But then when I was playtesting, where I playtest all my builds so thoroughly, and you know, I like to get my Sims to sit on every single seat, I like to get them to look into every single mirror, and even if it's not something that I'd wanted to be usable, I always just try my luck and see if it is, you know, player friendly. But yeah, surprisingly, when I was playtesting, my Sims could actually play darts, which is great. And so yeah, the little dartboard in the lounge room does actually function. But now moving over, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and decorating Andy's office. So in here, alongside with like a bookcase, a computer desk, a little computer, I also placed down a woodworking table, which I know might seem a little bit weird, but in my mind, Andy is like the main employee of the arcade and the roller rink. I think I'm going to make it in my save. So there is one other employee who would work in the bar downstairs in like the roller rink section, but in terms of like general maintenance of the venue and stuff, yeah, I imagine that Andy, he's the guy, he does it. And so in his little home office space, where it ended up being so big, I just thought maybe he has like a woodworking table, and instead of it being for woodworking, maybe if like a vending machine breaks and he takes it apart and maybe takes out a certain mechanic, he brings it upstairs and fixes it on the woodworking table. It was, to be honest, it was something to kind of fit out the room, but then also it is a little bit realistic if you have the guy that owns the venue to also be a little bit of a handyman and have a little handyman space. And so yeah, just place it down to his home office. But in here, as you can see, I'm actually just finishing up the bathroom. Very short and sweet bathroom. It's got a shower and bath combo. The one that I use is from Parenthood, and then also just like a little separate toilet and a little separate sink. And then I also tried to make it feel a little bit more masculine in the bathroom, so I placed down 2 different razors. I placed down an electric one, which I was thinking would probably be Andy's, but then I also placed down a razor which, you know, like the old fashioned, not electric, could do it by hand kind of razor. Placed down one of them which I was thinking is maybe his son's. But now moving on, I've started coming in and decorating Andy's room. Really stuck on how to decorate his room. I just tried to make it feel like a bloke's room, really. I did place down this one poster which is from Base Game, and it's like a cow plant eating a sim, which it felt quite, it felt like it belonged in the arcade downstairs. And like I said, I imagine that Andy, he loves arcade games. He lives and breathes his little small business. I also imagine him to be one of them people that he's just really good at roller skating, which does make sense because, you know, he does own a roller skating rink. But I don't know if you've ever seen any videos of like roller skating clubs, but I remember a little while ago I saw this one video of a roller rink somewhere, and there was like a group of like older men, and they would like dancing in like symmetry, and they were on this roller rink, and they just looked so cool. And I imagine Andy's one of them guys. He's really good at roller skating. But you know, I just placed down like a quiet childish looking painting into his room. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the son's bedroom. So, you know, I said earlier that I've fully playtested this whole entire lot, and I didn't really run into any problems apart from one thing up here. It was in this bedroom, and it was with the bookcase in the corner. It might be a bit hard when it's not currently on the screen, but basically I have this one bookcase which it looks a little bit rough. It's I think it's from the Werewolves game pack off memory, but I basically placed it down into the corner, and then I end up placing down a boxing bag in front of it. But then when I was playtesting, my Sims could use the boxing bag, but then they couldn't interact with the bookcase, and they kept on going into like the lounge room and trying to use that bookcase, and it was really annoying me. And so in the end, I just deleted the bookcase because I would rather, you know, everything in the room work rather than not work. But honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world, and like I said, everything else in this whole entire build is fully functional. Like everything worked when I was playtesting, which made me so happy because I didn't have to like scoot things around downstairs, and like the whole entire arcade works. I playtested it with multiple different Sims, so the arcade machines, there is spaces for 4 different Sims. I playtested that with 4 different Sims. The ping pong table, you can have up to 4 Sims play on it. I playtested that with 4 Sims. The foosball table, like absolutely everything works. And so yeah, if you download this build off the gallery, you're not going to run into any problems. And if you do download this build off the gallery, I really hope you enjoy playing in it, because I know for me personally, I'm just going to get so much use out of this, and I just love this build so much. But also in this room as well, as you can see, I placed down some posts onto the wall, I placed down like a little love seat sofa, and then I also do have a little computer desk with quite a older looking computer. I do also have a few different like suitcases and boxes of like random stuff, which maybe the teenager is still yet to sort out in his room. You know, he's kind of recently moved in with his dad, and he's still trying to find a home for all these different like knickknacks and bits and bobs and stuff. But other than that, I'm going to go around the build, finish it off by decorating the hallway and the outstairs, that's not even a word, is it? Upstairs balcony space, but that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedbuilding video. Bye guys.